Before the 90 days, where love is online, the math is never mathing, and common sense missed the flight. I'm recapping the nonsense, the scams, and the audacity. You're watching Kinda Unhinged. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another Before the 90 Days video, and we are on season 8, episode 15. So we begin this episode with Elise and Josh. So Elise wakes up in the apartment and Josh is nowhere to be found. She doesn't know where he's at. He didn't tell her that he was going out. So she immediately thinks that he must be at Nat's house. So she's still upset from the discussion that they had the night before with his friends, and she's just reeling on edge. She said that the place is a mess. She feels like she's living in a frat house. And she said that she had messaged Josh and said, I hope you're having fun at Nat's house or something like that. And he hearted the message. So, of course, that upset her. And she's crying. And then we hear the door open. And production is like, what was that? And she was like, that was Josh. He walked in, he saw me crying, and he left. So she goes to the door and he's sitting out in the stairwell and she's like, why did you just walk out like that? Why didn't you say anything to me? And he was like, well, I just thought you needed space. I saw you crying. She was like, well, where were you at? And he said, well, I just went out because I had to get some work done and I just wanted to do it while you were sleeping. And then she asked him, well, did you go to Nat's house? And he was like, no, I never went to her house. I was at work. So then we see Daniel and Lisa going to talk to Daniel's uncle, and they are both super nervous about what he's going to say. So Daniel tells him everything that happened, and he is completely upset. And he says this is an abomination and asked her why she lied to him. And she apologizes and says that she changed, and the uncle says he doesn't believe her. And then she starts hyperventilating. And the uncle thinks that she's faking it, just trying to get sympathy. And this makes him even madder, and he says that he is withdrawing his blessing. So then we catch back up with Beer Khan and Michael and Laura. And it's still kind of awkward. And then Michael says to Laura, well, I brought you 2 gifts. And Beer Khan kind of rolls his eyes and he goes, oh, that was so thoughtful. And then they continue to talk, and then at some point they kind of break the ice a little bit. And then Beer Khan offers to take Michael sightseeing. And of course he agrees. So then we see Emma heading to meet up with Muhammad. And she decides to wear her engagement ring that he bought her. And she's basically hoping that he'll be open to rekindling their relationship. And this is where Emma, to me, is a huge red flag, because you came on this trip to meet up with Zied, but you brought your engagement ring for Muhammad. And then right after breaking up with Zied, you're ready to try to go back to Muhammad. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So she gets to the restaurant and she's waiting. She texts him, he doesn't reply, and it's clear that she's being stood up. But then he texts her and says that he has a fiance and he doesn't want to talk to her. Then she gets mad that he made her come all the way just to stand her up. So she goes to the ocean and throws his ring in the ocean. And I'm thinking you should have did that a long time ago, because I knew he was playing games. He agreed to meet up with her way too easily. That ring should have never made it back to Morocco, in my opinion. And she should have listened to her friend and never agreed to meet up with him. But anyway, she decides that she's cutting her trip short and she's gonna head back to the US. And I think that's a great decision. So then we see Stig thanking Aviva for coming to visit him, and he tells her he loves her. And of course, this makes Aviva's day. And she's hoping that he is one step closer to proposing to her, because she wants to be engaged by the end of this trip. So he decides to take her to a resort and they go to a cooking class. And in this cooking class, they were getting kind of flirty. They had a little moment, and then the camera pans over, and you see this other teacher in the background just kind of deadpan staring at them. I was like, look at this hater. Ma'am, they're in love. Chill out. Why are you hating? So after they prepare their food and they start eating, Aviva mentions that she's super hungry. And Stig is like, you aren't pregnant, are you? And she was like, well, it's possible. And he was like, well, when did you have your last period? And she was like, well, I'm late. And he was like, do you think we should get a test? And they're like, yes. And she asked him how would he feel if she were pregnant. And he said he would feel excited because he wants to have a future with her. So after Elise's little crash out that she had, Josh decides to take her to a surfing lesson. And after their surfing lesson, they go and get food and they eat it on the beach. and he tells her that he doesn't want her to leave. And then she tells him that she's a little bit worried because he's not stable. Like he's on his final warning with his job. He doesn't really have a place to live, and he's like in a financial bind right now. And he said that he's just in a rough spot and he's had a hard time since his son moved away. And he started going out more to get his mind off of it. But now he's in a place where he's trying to get back on track. So Elise starts talking about how she's just concerned because she's been taken advantage of in the past and she doesn't want this to be one of those situations. And he gets offended because he's like, I haven't asked you for anything. What have you paid for since you've been here? And she's like, I mean, that's besides the point. And that is besides the point because that's how scammers get you. Not saying that Josh is a scammer. I don't get those vibes from him, but that's how scammers like get your guard down because if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's what the Tinder swindler did as well. Like take you out, buy you stuff at first, and then something comes up where, oh, now they need money or their money gets tied up. And then all of a sudden you're footing the bill for everything. So then we catch up with Rick and Trisha, and we see a scene with Rick trying to shower in this cold water, and all of Trisha's family is just watching and laughing. So her dad takes the opportunity to pull her to the side and talk to her. And he tells her that he's concerned about her relationship with Rick. He thinks that Rick isn't taking her seriously and he doesn't want kids with her. And Trisha's like, he didn't say he doesn't want kids with me. He said he hasn't decided. And then she says, if he decides that he doesn't want to have kids with me, would you make me choose between you and him? And her dad was like, yeah, because that's the whole purpose of getting married. It's very important in our culture and in our tribe for you to have kids. And Trisha basically says that she loves Rick, but if she had to choose between the two, then she would choose her family. And she's scared because she doesn't know how to convince him to have kids with her. Bir Khan apologizes to Michael for how he was acting when he first got there. So Michael asks him about his debt, and Bir Khan tells him that he lost his businesses during the pandemic and he's having a hard time trying to dig out of his debt. And he says that gambling is helping him to do that. And this raises Michael's spidey sense, and he feels like this is a red flag. And he mentions the fact that if he comes to the US, they have a casino that's not far from them. And what if he goes there and he gambles up all of his money? And then Michael makes the comment about how Laura gets up at 4 a.m. every morning to work out, and Bir Khan seemingly goes to sleep at 4 a.m. And he's like, how's that gonna work? Because me and Laura work out every morning. And Bir Khan says that he will try to fit in with Laura's schedule and do more things with her. And Michael says that he recommends marrying your best friend. So Bir Khan says, you consider yourself her best friend, right? And Michael's like, yeah. So Bir Khan says, why aren't you two together? Why haven't y'all fallen in love? And then they both start looking like deer in headlights, and neither one of them have an answer. And Bir Khan was like, noted. So then Elise calls her parents to vent to them about Josh and everything that happened. And her parents were like, you gotta chill and just give him a chance. Like, you're jumping to conclusions. And she's surprised at their reaction, but she decides that, maybe she should take their advice. So then we catch back up with Lisa, and she gets down on her knees and starts begging the uncle. And the uncle is like, get up, I'm not God. And I'm yelling, get up, Lisa, what are you doing? Why are you begging this man? And the uncle's like, how many times will you come back to me and ask me for forgiveness and tell me another story? And she's like, I won't. This is everything. This is everything that I have to tell. Then Daniel gets on his knees as well and starts begging his uncle and saying that this is the woman I want to be with. Please, is there any other way that we can be together? So at this point, the uncle says, okay, I'll go and I'll talk to the spiritual leaders and I'll get some advice from them and find out what to do, and then I'll come back to y'all. So of course, Lisa was completely relieved, but she's still a little bit afraid of what the spiritual leaders will say and if her and Daniel will be able to be together. So Bir Khan decides that he wants to go out with Michael one-on-one because he wants to get to know him more, and of course he's very suspicious about his relationship with Laura and he wants to get to the bottom of it. So they go to play pool, and Bir Khan wants an answer to his question. So he pushes Michael and he says, just be honest, just admit that you love her. and you want to be with her. And Michael was like, no, I don't want to be with her. If I wanted to be with her, she wouldn't be here right now. And Beer Khan was like, well, you made a move on her and she didn't want you. And Michael was like, I didn't make a move on her. She made a move on me and I turned her down. And Beer Khan was stunned. He was like, she made a move on you? And he said, yeah, she made a move on me. And Beer Khan was like, oh, she never mentioned that to me. And he's like, I don't want to be anybody's consolation prize. You couldn't get what you really wanted, so now you're coming to me? And Michael was like, yeah, I'm not here to drive a wedge between you two. I'm just trying to look out for my friend. And Michael, come on now. You know that's not entirely true. So now Beer Khan is second guessing his relationship with Laura. And that's where this episode ends. You guys let me know what y'all thought about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want more 90 Day Fiancé content, then go ahead and subscribe and I will see you in the next one.